policy advisory group that has been gathering all of this tremendous input that has come through all the different work sessions and plug them into what are the policy initiatives that need to occur. There's 5 different levels of government where individual policies could occur or legislation could occur. State is just one of those 5. There's certainly municipal issues that would need to be addressed. There are county issues that need to be addressed. There are even regional issues to be addressed. We actually do have, not very many of them, but we do have regional agencies in Idaho, whether they're health districts or NPOs or regional transit authorities. There are state, and certainly there are federal. So actually, I don't know if the reason it's difficult to answer that question is all the answers and all the changes that have to happen, only a portion of which, if we were looking at equal, only 20% of which this particular body has the capacity to do anything about. The other issue is there are municipal issues that need to be dealt with, of course. Perhaps the first on the list might be an unconstitutional limit of freedom of expression as reflected in their campaign policy. But there are many, many others. And if we look at, let's take a big one, for instance, Citizens United decision. There has been significant discussion in Congress about the need to initiate a constitutional amendment. There's really nothing except unless a constitutional convention were convened and the individual state houses would have to vote to accept the amendment. There's not much that can happen before Congress could act if you were looking at the issue just as a head-on issue. But I think the smarter consensus is you wouldn't take on a constitutional amendment head-on. You would build a coalition of support within city councils, within county commissions, within state houses that would bolster up your federal representatives to back a potential constitutional amendment clause. And that's where places like the perpetual vigil become extremely important to ensure that the people have a constant mechanism for being able to engage in the process. Not just to engage with decision makers, but to convene themselves to arrive upon the best strategy for moving forward.
Further questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quickly, Mr. Gunderson, are you paid for your activities?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Anderson, man, I wish so.
Mr. Chairman, follow-up question, please. Thank you very much. The next question would be, Mr. Gunderson, if you're not paid for, I gather you're not paid for, are you elected to represent the grounds over there? You have an elected body, so now you have representative government there that dictates who can and what type of people may join your organization?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Anderson, the organizational structure of occupied groups might be difficult for an individual who fully engages and participates in a linear structure to comprehend. But there is no elected.
If I may interrupt, Mr. Chairman, I understand linear ideas on this. The question simply is, you handed out a map to begin with that somehow dictates that you have some authority there to tell people where they can camp. You have little designations and circles. The problem is, in this representative government that I see, that we all must be obliged to participate in an orderly fashion, is that I could form my own form of government over there on those grounds and say, no, I don't think you have a first in time right to that little site. I'm going to take that from you. And this is nothing but chaos to me. In any way, I try to understand this, because as long as everybody behaves according to your doctrine and your group's doctrine, no one else can participate there, because you have set up your own governance for those grounds. And my problem with that is, and I agree with some of the other questioning, you may have some other people that you don't agree with, that I may not agree with, that come and say, no, you don't, I want your tents to be moved. I'm taking over those sites that you have for my cause. You don't have a first and right time here to the deed of that property. And you can follow up if you wish. That's more of a statement, Mr. Chairman, than anything else. But I see chaos in government to follow your line of thinking, and it seems very disjointed how you keep tailing back around in a very legalese type of manner. That this is not the way civilizations move forward. And you can redress, and you can say that only 20% of the issue is state issue. Well, then I suggest that the other 20% that the federal have, you go occupy federal land, and the other 20% that the municipalities have, go occupy 20% of that with your groups, because this is not federal or state land. My same argument would be that I don't think that people have a right to go onto state land and take things from state land that don't belong to them. And I think you probably, in your group, agree with those issues too. However, there is a taking here. And you may have a philosophy that is very well sound and founded in your own group, but it doesn't play well with the people that elect me.
At this point, I think I'm going to, I'm not trying to cut anybody off, and certainly Representative Anderson, we value what you have to say here, and that's not the point of this. But we've strayed away from the purpose of this bill. And as we talk about this piece of legislation, it would be the hope of this committee that we could talk about the subject of the legislation, and not about some grandiose philosophy that we may all have. And we've all got them, and we're all different. I mean, we all have a different perspective about this particular issue. But if you would confine yourself to the, as you testify, to the subject matter of the bill, which is, as I understand the bill, is to whether or not camping is going to be allowed on the Capitol Mall and other similarly situated facilities owned by the state. Whether that's, and I understand philosophies in that a little bit as well, and First Amendment rights and all that stuff, but still, we need to, you know, we're limited in the time we have here this morning. We are due on the floor by 11 o'clock, and we basically got an hour left, and we haven't hardly started the number of people who have signed to testify. So confine yourself to the subject matter of the bill as you would, so we can conclude our business here today.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, since
briefly, if you would.
I just, since Representative Anderson opened the door to asking that, offering for my response if I so chose. The particular scenario that he envisioned implies an exclusivity of use, that somehow we occupy the entire site and no one else can have it. It's ours, and we're going to take our ball, and you guys can't play. Actually, if you actually go over to the Vigil site, you'll find that there's a tremendous number of other activities, both state activities, non-state activities, and additional space for any other group that wishes to come in and to engage in political protest.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your being here today.
Thank you.
Gene Bray.